We all want to succeed. But what if that desire isn't just ambition? What if it's fear? Fear of being overlooked. Fear of being unworthy. Fear of disappointing someone you love. For some people, success is a goal. For others, it's a way to survive. Maybe that's you. You weren't chasing trophies. You were chasing safety. You weren't building a future. You were trying to escape the past. It starts early. You get praised for being smart. You get attention when you win. You get love when you perform. And you learn. Your value comes from achievement, not from who you are, but from what you can prove. So you keep proving, again and again. You study harder. You work longer. You always say yes. You sacrifice rest. You sacrifice play. You sacrifice yourself. But the world doesn't see that. The world claps. They call you disciplined, driven, high-achieving. No one sees the panic behind your productivity. No one hears the voice in your head that says, "You're still not doing enough." You smile on the outside, but you're exhausted inside, and no one knows it, because exhaustion has become your normal. Emily was the top student in her class. Every test, A+. Every project, perfect. She was known as the golden girl. Teachers adored her. Her parents bragged about her. But Emily had a secret. She wasn't doing it for the joy of learning. She was doing it to survive. Her father only showed affection when she brought home good grades. Her mother criticized her for every mistake. Emily learned, if I fail, I lose love. So she never failed. She never rested. She never cried. She built a life on perfection. But underneath, she was scared to death of being ordinary. Scared to be seen without her armor. This is the quiet trauma of over-identification with success. You're not chasing dreams. You're avoiding rejection. Every goal is a defense. Every achievement is a shield. Every success says, "Please don't leave me. Please see me. Please love me." It's not ambition. It's survival. And Jung knew this. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Let that sink in. Because many of us aren't even living our own lives. We're living the life our parents wished they had. Your mom never got to pursue her passion, so you succeed for her. Your dad never felt respected, so you chase power to redeem him. Your family had to struggle, so now you overwork to make sure no one else suffers. That's not success. That's inherited pressure. And it's heavy. But here's what makes it harder. You get rewarded for it. The world loves a high achiever. Society celebrates grind culture. Instagram praises the boss energy. You get applause for your pain. So you keep pushing. You keep performing. Even when it hurts, because slowing down would mean facing what's underneath. And what's underneath? Grief, shame, fear, loneliness. If you stop being productive, you fear you'll become invisible, so you keep running. You don't even know who you are anymore, only what you can do. That's the danger of over-identification with success. You become a role, not a person. What happens when it cracks? You hit a wall, burnout, panic attacks, a sudden identity crisis. You achieve your dream job and feel empty. You get the degree and still feel lost. You earn 6 figures and still feel like a fraud. Why? Because external success can't heal internal wounds. No amount of applause will fix a childhood ache. No promotion can replace love that felt conditional. No resume line will ever say, "You are enough." This is the moment people often break. But it's also the moment people begin. Because when you realize success isn't saving you, you finally ask the right question. What am I really running from? And that's where healing begins. Not when you get the raise, not when you cross off another goal, but when you stop, turn around, and look inward. You begin to ask, who am I outside of achievement? Whose expectations am I trying to meet? What would I choose if I wasn't so afraid of failing? Those are terrifying questions, but they are true questions. Because the truth is, you don't need more success. You need to feel safe without it. You need to be loved without performing. You need to rest without guilt. You need to exist without proving. That's not weakness. That's healing. And that's what we'll explore next. You keep achieving. You keep moving. You stay busy. You don't stop. But have you ever asked why? What are you running from? Not running towards success, but away from something deeper, something uncomfortable, something silent, something inside. For many people, achievement is not about goals. It's about distraction, because stillness is unbearable, because silence brings up too much, because the moment you slow down, the truth starts to rise. The truth you've buried, the feelings you've suppressed, the identity you've never questioned. You think you're being productive, but sometimes productivity is avoidance. Avoidance dressed up in ambition. Avoidance that gets praised. Avoidance that earns you respect. But it's still avoidance. You build businesses. You finish degrees. You run marathons. But you won't sit alone in a quiet room. You won't ask, who am I if I'm not achieving something? Because that question is terrifying. Because you built your entire self around doing, not being. You've been taught achievement equals worth, and without it, you fear you'll disappear. This is how emotional disconnection begins. It starts small. A little voice that says, don't rest. You'll fall behind. Don't feel. It'll make you weak. Don't pause. There's work to do. So you obey the voice. You turn off your body. You tune out your emotions. You ignore your needs. And you get things done. But at what cost? You forget how to feel joy. You lose touch with your intuition. You become efficient, but empty. You become successful, but numb. You smile, but you don't mean it. You celebrate, but feel hollow. You win, but something's missing. Because you're not fully there. You're not connected to yourself. You're just performing a version of who you think you need to be. Case study, Jason's story. Jason was the kind of guy everyone admired. Sure. Confident. Always in control. He had a great job, a great apartment, a great life. But he couldn't sleep. Every night his thoughts raced. What's next? Am I doing enough? Why don't I feel satisfied? On the outside he was thriving. But inside, he was crumbling. One night, after another long shift, Jason finally broke down. He didn't know why. But the tears wouldn't stop. Through therapy, Jason realized he had never asked himself what he wanted. Not once. He had been living out the script his parents gave him. The script society gave him. Get good grades. Land a high-paying job. Buy the condo. Be admired. But nowhere in that story was him. He wasn't chasing joy. He was avoiding rejection. He wasn't building a life. He was performing a role. We often assume people who achieve a lot have it all figured out. But often they're the ones most disconnected from their truth. Because the more you achieve, the more pressure you feel to maintain the image, and the less space you have to question it. You tell yourself, I'm just being responsible. I'm just working hard. This is what adults do. But behind those justifications is fear. Fear that if you slow down, you'll fall apart. Fear that if you stop, you'll be nothing. But here's the truth. If success makes you abandon yourself, it's not success. It's self-erasure. And no amount of achievement can fill the emptiness that comes from losing yourself. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's what achievement often becomes. A way to stay distracted. A way to feel valuable without feeling vulnerable. But the soul cannot be ignored forever. Eventually it will demand to be heard. Through anxiety. Through exhaustion. Through breakdown. That's not failure. That's your inner self calling you back. So what does reconnection look like? It starts small. It starts slow. It starts with one question. What am I feeling right now? Not what you're doing. Not what you've accomplished. But what you're feeling. And at first, it might be uncomfortable. You might feel lost. You might feel empty. That's normal. You're not broken. You're just waking up. Waking up from years of survival mode. Waking up from perfectionism. Waking up from the myth that your worth depends on what you produce. You were never meant to hustle your way to self-worth. You were never meant to abandon your emotions to win approval. You were never meant to live someone else's dream. You were meant to be whole. Not just high-achieving, but emotionally alive. Not just productive, but present. You deserve to feel joy that's not earned. You deserve to rest without shame. You deserve a life that reflects your soul, not just your resume. That's the shift we're moving toward. And in the next chapter, we'll explore how childhood scripts, often passed down unconsciously, shape your relationship with success. Because until you see where it started, you'll keep running in circles. You didn't start out chasing success. You started out chasing love. As a child, you were tuned in to every sigh, every frown, every moment your parent looked disappointed, and every moment they lit up when you did something right. You noticed, even when they didn't say it out loud. You learned love can be earned. So you started earning. You became the good kid, the smart one, the one who didn't cause trouble, the achiever. Why? Because that's when you felt seen. That's when you felt safe. You weren't chasing dreams. You were chasing connection. That's when the inner performer was born. The inner performer is the part of you that performs for love, that smiles when it's hurting, that overachieves to be valued, that hides the parts of you that might be too much. This is where success starts to twist, not as joy, but as survival. Let's talk about Adam. Adam was raised by a father who was tough. No hugs, just rules. No praise, just expectations. The one time Adam got an award at school, his dad said, "That's how it should be." So Adam kept winning. School, career, life, always trying to earn a moment of pride. But when his dad finally said, "I'm proud of you," it didn't land. Adam felt nothing. Why? Because it was never about that one moment. It was about the emptiness that built up over years. And success couldn't fix it. This is how many of us live. We think we're chasing success, but really we're chasing someone's approval, a parent, a teacher, an ex, ourselves. We become addicted to the chase, not because we love the journey, but because we're afraid of what happens when we stop. What happens if you're no longer impressive? What happens if you don't meet the standard? Or you then? This is what Jung meant when he said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." You were never just living your life. You were living the version that would make them proud, them comfortable, them fulfilled. But what about you? Here's the hard truth. You were trained to please, trained to impress, trained to perform. And somewhere along the way, you forgot how to rest. You forgot how to just be. You're always on, even when no one's watching. You scroll, compare, improve. You don't allow silence, because in silence, the emptiness speaks, and that's scary. So you achieve, so you distract, so you stay busy. You say it's for your future, but often it's still for your past. Let's break it down. Signs you're still living to perform. You feel guilty when you rest. You define your worth by how much you do. You don't know what you actually want, only what's expected. You fear disappointing others more than betraying yourself. Praise gives you a high. Criticism crushes you. You've lost touch with joy. If any of these hit you, you're not broken. You're patterned. You were conditioned this way. But now you get to rewrite the script. Healing begins when you stop chasing love through achievement. Ask yourself, if I didn't have to prove anything, what would I do? If no one clapped, would I still want this? Am I building a life I love, or a life they'll love? Because here's the thing. Real success doesn't feel like proving. It feels like alignment. It feels like peace. Like breathing. Like you don't have to hide anymore. You're allowed to redefine success. You're allowed to stop running. You're allowed to disappoint others if it means being honest with yourself. That's not selfish. That's healing. And healing is messy. You might cry. You might feel lost. You might grieve the years you spent performing. But grief is not failure. It's freedom. You're stepping out of someone else's story and stepping into your own. The inner performer helped you survive. But now it's keeping you small, keeping you tired, keeping you disconnected from your true self. You don't have to fire the performer, but you do need to take back the stage. Let your real self speak. Let your real desires lead. Not because it's impressive, but because it's true. And when truth leads, peace follows. Let's start here. You're not afraid to fail. You're afraid of what failure will mean about you. Because somewhere deep inside, you've made success your identity, your worth, your safety. You're not chasing goals. You're trying to stay alive. Not physically, emotionally. You've tied achievement to acceptance and failure to rejection. So failing feels like death to your self-worth, to your place in the world, to how you see yourself. Here's the truth no one talks about. Many high achievers aren't driven by passion. They're driven by fear. Fear of being nothing. Fear of being no one. Fear of being forgotten. So they work, push, climb, until the mountain owns them. You say you love the grind, but the truth is, you're terrified to stop. Because stopping feels like collapsing, like being seen, without the armor. Let's meet Sophie. Sophie is successful. She runs a business. She's financially free. People admire her. But she can't sleep. Her chest is always tight. Her mind never shuts off. She feels like she's constantly performing. Even alone. Even in her own home. Why? Because if she slows down, she'll have to face what's underneath. The belief that she's only lovable if she's doing something. That rest is laziness. That softness is weakness. So she pushes, even when her body screams for rest, because success has become her protection. This isn't rare. This is everywhere. People aren't addicted to success. They're addicted to what success protects them from. Silence, emptiness, shame. Old voices. The voice that says, you're nothing unless you win. You're only lovable if you achieve. If you stop now, no one will care. So you keep running, even when you're out of breath. Here's where it gets painful. When your identity is built on success, you stop seeing yourself clearly. Your value equals your output. Your rest equals your guilt. Your emotions equals your weakness. It becomes a game you can't stop playing. Even when it exhausts you. even when it kills your joy. You live in survival mode, smiling, thriving on the outside, but inside, you're empty, anxious, disconnected. Let's slow down. Ask yourself, who am I without my titles? Who am I when I'm not helping, fixing, or impressing? Would I still love myself if I failed tomorrow? Those questions scare you. You're not broken. You're just conditioned. You were taught that performance equals worth. But here's the thing. That belief isn't yours. It was handed to you by parents who only praised results, by a society that rewards burnout, by systems that measure you by your productivity, and you internalized it. Until now. You don't have to prove your worth. You never did. But I get it. Letting go feels dangerous. Because proving kept you safe. It kept you focused. It gave you something to hold on to. But it also kept you small, numb, and always afraid. Fear of failure isn't about failing. It's about identity collapse. So what's the answer? Start separating who you are from what you do. Say it with me. My value isn't in my output. My worth isn't up for negotiation. I'm not my success. I'm not my failure. I am more than what I produce. Healing begins when you allow imperfection, when you let go of the pressure, when you rest without guilt, when you show up real, not just polished. It's scary, but it's also freeing. Because true success isn't about proving. It's about belonging to yourself as you are. No mask, no hustle, no act. This might take time. Undoing years of performance programming isn't easy. You might fall back into old patterns. You might feel the urge to prove again. That's okay. Awareness is the beginning. Compassion is the path. Integration is the goal. You're not running anymore. You're returning to the self that existed before the performance began. The self that was always worthy, always enough, even in stillness, even in failure, especially then. You've spent years chasing success, chasing numbers, titles, validation, and still something feels missing. You got the job, you bought the car, you hit the goals, but your heart? Still restless, still unsure, still aching. Because here's the truth. Success isn't success if it costs your peace, your health, your joy. You were told to chase more. But maybe it's time to chase real. Let's pause. What does success mean to you? Not what they said, not what school taught, not what society applauds, but you. If no one was watching, no one judging, no one handing out trophies, what would success look like? Peace, freedom, time with people you love, a quiet morning without anxiety? That's your real success. And the problem is, you've been running someone else's race. Let's go back. Maybe you had a parent who only praised achievement. Maybe you learned early that doing well made you lovable. Maybe you were the responsible one, the star student, the fixer. You became addicted to being seen as capable, useful, impressive. But deep inside, you just wanted to be loved, without needing to earn it. That's why you overwork, why you never rest, why failure terrifies you. Because for you, success became survival. But you don't have to live like that anymore. Take this in. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to not be productive. And you're still worthy. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself. Because you're not here to impress. You're here to live, to feel, to connect, to experience. That's the real success. Let's meet James. He was a lawyer. 6 figures. Corner office. Everyone said he made it. But every morning, he felt sick. He hated the work. He felt disconnected. Burnout. He kept going. Because quitting felt like failing. But one day he broke. Panic attacks. Depression. He couldn't pretend anymore. So he walked away. Started teaching music. Lives in a smaller apartment. Makes half as much. But he's never been more at peace. That's success. Living a life that feels like you. Even if no one claps. So ask yourself, what energizes me? What drains me? What would I do if I didn't fear judgment? What part of my life is performance? Write it down. Be honest. No one's watching but you. You get to define success now. And maybe, it's not in the numbers. It's in the mornings when you wake up calm. The evenings when you're present with people you love. The moments when you feel real. Jung said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Don't carry that burden forward. Live your life, not theirs. Not what culture expects. Not what fear demands. You're not here to impress. You're here to become. To awaken. To love yourself in wholeness. Not just when you're winning. Let your definition of success evolve. Let it soften. Let it nourish you. And remember, you don't need permission to quit, to rest, to change your mind. You're allowed to be happy. Even if no one else understands, you're allowed to walk away. Even from something successful. If it doesn't feed your soul, you're allowed to choose peace over applause. Authenticity over performance. Depth over status. This is your one life. Make it yours. You've done the hard part, surviving. Now do the brave part, living. Not for approval. Not for perfection. But for you. The real you. Not the achiever. Not the performer. The human. The soul. And that's real success.